Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm calling to order this meeting of the Council of the Town of Oakville, and I would invite everyone to rise and join Council in the singing of O Canada. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. All right. Madam Clerk, I understand we have regrets this evening.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have regrets from Councillor Robinson.
And I believe also from Councillor Grant. And Council, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Madam Clerk, I see none. Council, you have before you the minutes of the previous council meetings as listed in the agenda. Are you satisfied with those minutes? Moved to be confirmed by Councillor Lischina, seconded by Councillor Chisholm. All in favor? Opposed, if any, and the minutes are confirmed. We have a public presentation this evening from Rob Kent, the president of the Lake Ontario Swim Team, which he cleverly named that way so that he could call it Lost Swimming. And Mr. Kent, would you come forward and share your information with council?
Hello. I'm too tall for this, but I'll talk loud. So let me start with, I know I've only got a few minutes, so I'll make quite quick. Of all the councillors, I wanted to just make this a information session, essentially, to inform you about Lost Swimming. How many of you are familiar with Lost Swimming? I know like Dave and Nick and Rob are and everything. Okay, well that's the good news and bad news. That this is worthwhile doing then, and unfortunately you don't know about it, but I'm glad you don't, because this makes sense then. So I wanted to show you about this and show you why you should know about it. So I've got a little 10-page or 10-slide PowerPoint here that just closed on me. There we go. So essentially I want to tell you what Lost Swimming is, how it came to be, where we are now, and where we're going. And it's the where we're going that I'd like to leave with you. Let's see here. So this is Lost Swimming. This was taken on August 12th, this last summer. And that's part of why you should know who we are. Yeah, this is a little bit of an embarrassing backstory, but I'll tell you it because it's kind of relevant. In 1988, I tried to make the Olympic team in swimming, and then took about 17 years off of that. And did everything but swimming, ran about 40 marathons, and including the ones you see there, a 7-day ultra marathon across the Sahara Desert, and a few Boston marathons and things like that. And eventually got into, when Ironman started becoming popular, got into that around 2003, and that brought me back into swimming. which, as I say, I hadn't done in years and years. But I liked the idea of open water swimming. So I set myself a goal to get me back into it, and in 2006 I decided I would swim the English Channel. So I started training in Lake Ontario right at the Navy Street Pier, and everybody thought I was crazy because nobody swims in Lake Ontario, and you've probably seen people now more recently swimming in Lake Ontario. Literally when I started, and I've lived in Oakville for 22 years or so, I had never seen anybody swim in the lake, and other than a little splash here or there, but nobody swam in the lake. And everybody thought you're crazy, it's too cold, but mostly it was too polluted. Well, I got in and started training there, and found out a lot of that was myth and lore, and it probably was true at one point, and I've swum every square inch of from Toronto to Hamilton and all over. And there are better and worse places. One of the best places for actual swimming is right at the Navy Street Pier. So, let's see here. After I came back from the English Channel, the next summer I kept swimming because it seemed like a fun thing to do, and it was kind of neat and different. And a few triathlon buddies and marathon buddies joined me, and we started the Lake Ontario swim team, and as Rob said, cleverly called it Lost, so it also goes as Lost Swimming, and you can actually find the website lostswimming.com while I think of it. And two years later, we started the Lost Race with a grand total of 8 swimmers, and we swam from Maple Grove, right at the foot of Maple Grove there, the little parkette, to the Navy Street Pier. And you can see in the upper right of the slide there, that was our first pier picture, unlike that last one I showed you. And then the bottom right there was Lost Swimming in 2010, and we'd get like a dozen people out. And we started doing it every Saturday morning at 8. And like I say, this is now 4 years into it, and we were getting a dozen or so people. By 2011, we got to about 20 people would come out every Saturday morning from June 1st until as late as the lake would let us. Certainly into September. September is often the warmest month, and sometimes into October. By 2012, we were up to like 30 or 40 people every Saturday morning. And then that brings us up to where we are now. Lost is, this summer we are averaging around 90 people every Saturday morning down there swimming with us. Our record was 103 people out just for a Saturday morning swim. Marilyn Bell came out to swim with us. We get people from all over the world, largely due to the, as I mentioned, our website. People come from Ireland, Australia, England, Spain, Italy, because as you can imagine, in the world of open water swimming, it's a kind of a small world, and Lost is very well known globally. And then, you can see there, after we always go to the local Bean There Cafe, which some of you certainly know. And as we grew, we started taking on more things. Here's another picture of our typical Lost swim. The beer bottle in the bottom left there is I threw in there just to show you that we're actually very good stewards of the lake, that we don't do it for brownie points or anything. It's in our own best interest to take care of the lake, and we're always doing that. After Midnight Madness, we always have a lot to clean up the next morning. And fishing beer bottles out and stuff like that isn't unusual. But you can see there too in the upper left, we have the kayaks and buoys out every Saturday morning and set it up for all the swimmers. But as it grew, we decided to do more things. The Lost Race grew as well. You can see there, you might recognize the gentleman in the bottom right there, who's come out to help us a few times in starting the race. And Jennifer in the middle there is kind of a good example. She has one leg and comes out and swims with us. George Milne in the upper right there is 83, and he comes out and swims with us. But the more cachet ones, Luis Escobar, who in the bottom left there was an Olympian that actually came second in the lost races last year. Craig in the middle there beat him. But we get a lot of, again, people from all over. Your average Saturday morning, we get people drive here from Barrie, from Scarborough, from Richmond Hill, from St. Catharines, from London, Ontario. We have a few guys that drive up from Pennsylvania, and one guy who was training for the English Channel drove up all last summer every Saturday from Virginia just to swim with us, which of course doesn't make any sense at all, but it has something to do with our group itself, which is pretty unique. And then we, as a spin-off, we organized the GLCO, Great Lake Crossing Organization, to help people whose goal is to swim across Lake Ontario. And there's a few examples there. I'll move along a little quicker here, but it's kind of cool. I've swum across, and there's an idea of times there for how long it takes. 26 hours, 24 hours, 20 hours, 18 hours of continuous swimming. Some people swim to Toronto. A few of us losties, swim literally right here, just because that's where we swim, and it means more to us to do that crossing. Another spin-off was the Global Swim Series, and that's grown like crazy. It's a year and a half old, and the Global Swim Series now has over 60,000 swimmers in it. Remember I told you about the Lost Race? Well, there's lots of little races around the world, and there's a few huge ones. And myself and a few other people from Lost put together the Global Swim Series, and now we have this huge organization with 60,000 swimmers, actually 90 racers, actually 92. Two more joined since I got home from work today. And in 29 countries, you can see there, Canada, United States, Mexico, Haiti, Turks and Caicos, St. Kitts and Nevis, Cayman Islands, Bermuda, Barbados, Brazil, Ireland, Northern Ireland, England, Spain, Greece, Morocco, South Africa, Austria, Russia, United Arab Emirates, Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia, Vietnam, Samoa, New Zealand, and Australia. So it really is something. In the upper left there's the one picture of the race in South Africa with 16,000 swimmers in it. All of these have joined. So just down to the wire here, I'll make it quick. But that's where we came from, that's what we are, and this slide is about how we want to move ahead. The fact that, and this is kind of what proved my point to myself, that even our own town isn't aware of us. But in all fairness, we have nothing that shows we're there. We're in and out on Saturday mornings before most people are up. Dave's out there walking his dog and stuff, but most people don't know us. There's no, we have no facilities, no anything. So that's what, partly because we want it, but we want some type of facilities, but also it would help us just to have some kind of building or anything with it. So we have 5 things there on our wish list that we'd like to have, and I gather this isn't the right time or place to have a discussion about that, but just to throw it out there that these are things that we're looking for. Just even to start with in their degree of difficulty. The easy one is, we've been talking with Chris Mark about this, is just a 10 by 10 storage shed, because we've had some of our equipment go missing, and just to have that there. What we'd really like too is a plaque that we can put for, and again, there's a whole conversation there, but I'll leave it at that. The pump house, as Dave discovered, is going to be decommissioned. So we're thinking maybe when that comes about, which is in the works at some point, that we can use that as storage. and/or a clubhouse. And a clubhouse would be an ideal thing, you know, not unlike what the canoe club and the other associations along the creek have. The tow wharf building is something that has been discussed, and I don't have any information about that, but just something that would work really well. And the last one is a groin, which is those rocky outcrops that grow out into the lake and essentially are breakwaters. And the only problem with where we swim, we actually swim is a great place to swim on the lake, but it's really hard to get in and out because it's so rocky there. There's other places that are sandy and stuff, but are not good places to swim. So if you look at the very bottom there is a groin in that picture, and then there's one at the whatever the other end of the beach, but I'll wrap it up here. But yeah, we'd like to improve those so that to make the swimming better.
Thank you, Mr. Kent, for your information.
Yep.
Councillor Giddings.
Thanks for coming out and bringing our council colleagues up to date on what Councillor Nick and the mayor and I have seen a number of times. I'll continue to come out with my dog and cheery on, but I think I'd be over my head if I joined you out in the water. Thanks for what you're doing. You have between 20 and 100 people out between May and September.
Yeah, well, every year the average goes up, and it used to be a dozen or so. Well, it used to be one, and then now we average like 90 people all last summer.
Yeah, well, having been there and seen the events a number of times, both at Maple Grove and at the pier, good on you. I see you guys head out there, and it's quite the feat. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Kent, for your information.
Thanks.
Council, I'd draw your attention now to the standing committee reports from Community Services and Administrative Services for the meetings last week, and look for your pleasure with regard to these. Mover and seconder. Councillor Elgar moves, Councillor Adams seconds. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? And that is authorization for both reports. We have no consent items, but we do have a couple of discussion items tonight. And the first is, I have to say, as the fellow who introduced it, I'd say it was inspired by our good friend and neighbor, Mayor Bennett in Halton Hills, and many of us who sit on the regional council are familiar with Mayor Bennett. And so we gave notice of this at a previous council meeting and have brought it before you for your consideration tonight. Councillor Lischina, did you have anything you wanted to say to this item?
Thank you, Your Worship. I do think this is an important initiative. We realize when a disaster happens, lots of things are on the go right away, but then as soon as other news comes through, it is lost in everybody's minds. And so I am glad that this has been brought forward. I think there's a lot of rebuilding that is necessary, and this will go a long way. And I think this is also an example for other municipalities to participate in. So I'm happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, are there other remarks about this matter? It's duly before you, moved and seconded by me and the councillor from Ward 6. Shall I put the vote? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Thank you, Council. That carries. Now, I ask your attention for the item number 2, the corporate digital strategy update. And I'm going to turn to the Commissioner of Community Services to see what kind of presentation you might have for the public.
We do have a presentation, Mr. Mayor, and Ian Barker is here as the Director of Digital Strategy to
Perfect.
present it.
Perfect. I'd like the public to see this presentation.
Do we know where to locate it?
Okay, right there.
Oh, good. There we go. Mr. Mayor and members of council, thanks very much for the opportunity to present. I'll be actually representing the corporate digital strategy that we put forward first at a subcommittee on the 7th of November of last year. By way of structuring the presentation, we broke it into 5 quick pieces, a rough run through of the situation assessment, leading to the recommendation of the corporate digital strategy, which we then broke into a series of focus areas and then connected it to existing sources of funding. And then if we've got a little bit of time, we'll go through a tour of our beta website as well. So there are several drivers of the town's recommended digital strategy. The first of these is around digital transformation, which is a force that's been affecting a lot of different areas, both corporately and across governments. But one of the manifestations that we have to deal with is to recognize that there are strong and growing public expectations about what services to deliver, how to package them, and how to make sure that those are easy to use and that they are intuitive for citizens. So what this does is it raises the expectations and it raises the bar for the services that the city has to turn around and provide back to its citizens. Secondly, we know that the cities of tomorrow are looking increasingly smart. And that's simply to recognize that we're increasingly using sensor-based technologies to connect town assets to the internet so that we can measure what's happening and understand in real time how our assets are performing and seek performance improvements, seek cost reductions, and again, seek citizen wellness. And the third part of this, of course, is we're generating enormous amounts of data. We need to pause for a moment. No? Okay, all right. We're also generating enormous amounts of data. This data comes from several different databases, from financial databases to some of our performance databases like CLASS or our customer relationship management system. The idea is if we can put this data together in new and innovative ways, we should be able to uncover new data, generate new analytics that can help employees internally. Secondly, we have the recognition that there are increasing financial pressures that are ahead of us. We know that we want to constrain tax increases. We know that we have the vision to be Canada's most livable town. So you put those two things together and there's a tension there, there's pressure. And what we'd like to discover is how can we use digital technologies to alleviate some of those cost pressures? And so that's going to require some degree of experimentation in order for us to uncover those areas of savings and implement those strategies, but to experiment in a lightweight, cost-effective, and rapid basis. And then thirdly, there's a whole area of economic development ahead of us. As people are probably recognizing, more municipalities in the GTA are implementing digital strategies. The pressure is increasing, therefore, and people are beginning to chase knowledge workers, knowledge businesses, and there's a growth case to be made about where does Oakville want to position itself in the coming 5 to 10 years. I think we certainly want to be at the forefront of that space if we can. So when you put together a strategy, obviously you want to consider not just what the environment is telling you, but also where you stand yourself. So when we looked at our own situation internally, there really are some fantastic building blocks upon which we can build. We have a marvelous IT team here, great infrastructure across the town. For example, we have 100 kilometers of gigabit speed fiber optic cable that is a town asset that we own that is not owned by third parties. This provides a basis upon which we can form a competitive advantage and attract new businesses and the other things I referred to a moment ago. Secondly, we've already been planning capital investments over the coming 10 years. And this then becomes a question of how we want to direct, manage, and organize our resources towards a common objective. Similarly, we've got many planned service redesigns over the next number of years. As already mentioned, we've got a lot of unmined data. That's also a vast resource that we can tap. And then fifthly, and I can say this personally because it's what I've been doing, we have tremendous willpower inside the town to make this shift from where we are now to a fully realized, digitally transformed town. So we have to organize all this towards a common objective. And so what we've recommended is that we target becoming the GTA's most connected community. We feel this is an accomplishable mission. To do so, I think we have to check a few boxes. The first of these is to put citizens at the forefront of our redesigns. So engaging citizens with a citizen-first approach to service delivery design is paramount, and I'll discuss in a couple of minutes how we plan to go about doing that. Secondly, we need to look internally for process improvements and to eliminate or reduce technology silos where we possibly can for the obvious reasons that we can gain greater efficiency. And then thirdly, we want to make sure that we're targeting becoming an evidence-based, data-driven culture. I like the idea that we sort of Fitbit or digitally monitor the town. And so every employee ought to know what his or her objectives are for the day, for the week, for the month, and be able to analyze that in data and understand how they're doing against those targets. And then fifthly, we have an objective in this town to become Canada's most livable town. So certain things would seem to flow from that, and one of those ought to be that we should try to be the Canada's, or the GTA's rather, most connected community. In other words, if we want to be the most livable, certain things sort of become, I think, mandatory fallouts from that. So we took all this then and organized it into 4 focus areas: citizen-centered design, data analytics and decision-making, culture, and partnerships. And we feel that those 4 pieces come together very, very nicely. The first, citizen-centered design, really has a couple of things that are again, preeminent. First of these is to know our users, which sounds relatively straightforward. But one of the things that companies and organizations that are large often do is make assumptions about what their users want, or what their customers want, or what their citizens want in our case. Acquire software or put in place systems before analyzing what those people actually want. So part of the process that we're going to embark upon is to bring citizens in upfront with all of our service redesigns where that touches the world of digital, to make sure that we have prioritized and understood what they want and turn that into software, turn that into solutions. We also want to look at Oakville.ca as a website and understand that it's a major web property, and to rethink how we want to structure that property going forward. And the way to look at that, we would recommend, is to think of it as more of a platform rather than an informational website. And platforms, by their very nature, are designed to grow and evolve and change as demands require over the course of time. But there are ways of doing this that are very cost-effective and very, very manageable. Secondly, from a data analytics and decision-making standpoint, really there are 3 pieces there. The first I've already talked about, which is the use of data internally to improve our decision-making. The second of these is open data, determining which data sets we would like to publish and make available to the public for open data purposes. I think the recommendation we want to make there, however, is to think about productizing this data, to really think about which marketplaces, again, this is open data, but who are the user bases and what are their requirements, and how can we publish this data in a way that they can actually make active use of. In this way, we can begin to gather data and publish it in a way that people actually need, and then turn that into hopefully applications from which we can all benefit. The third part of data and analytics and decision making is smart city, which I've already previously touched on, but this is the idea of attaching sensors to all of our town assets and measure in real time how they're performing so we can make decisions about how to operate more smartly. All of this, of course, requires some change. So culture is a piece that Julie Clark and I who's the director of HR, and I've been discussing at some length. And it's more her purview than it is mine, but it's a necessary element to recognize within the structure of this strategy. But we do want to think in terms of what the skills are we need to hire here over the coming number of years, and how do we make the town an attractive place for those sorts of workers to want to come and work for. So there's a considerable amount of things we need to consider there as well. From a change management standpoint, we're thinking in terms of how do we make this an attractive, interesting, palatable change for staff and for citizens. Partnerships is the last area, and so we've been discussing this internally and saying things like if we try to constrain the change within Oakville's metaphorical 4 walls, this will be a less successful endeavor. And that if we can partner with the business community, with residents associations, with academic institutions and others, we can go much further, much more quickly, and in so doing, draw them in to help us accomplish our common objectives. So we've talked to Sheridans and Cisco's and the champions of the region of Halton Region, that's an innovation group. Champions of Innovation, that's right. And the idea here is that we'll all work together to see how we can share information, share processes, and hopefully develop solutions together. So we've turned this then into a series of projects, many of which are underway, but they're at a relatively early stage. The first of these is to redevelop Oakville.ca from where it is. And we had those council workshops through the middle part of January. I think we recognized that Oakville.ca was a good site, still performs its functions by and large, but could stand for some change. The question is then, what do you want to change it into? And what I think we should not do is paint ourselves into a box and make assumptions at the early part of 2017 about what Oakville.ca ought to be in 2020. So this then makes us think about how to architect Oakville.ca as a platform so that we can grow that product into the future without incurring new cost. So an example of this would be in the area of customer relationship management or a CRM system. And that's sort of a category of software that has done a nice job of migrating into the cloud. We're looking at things like software as a service, the benefit of software as a service solutions when it plays into things like Oakville.ca. Is that we can grow that platform more flexibly into the future without having to pull out software by the roots and reinstall things and incur time costs, and et cetera. We can grow our solution into the future much more smoothly using software as a service. And then we look at things like our internal processes and how they operate today and how we can process re-engineer, because the last thing you want to do, of course, is to introduce a new software solution, but that pertains to your old methodologies. So there are a number of areas that we're looking at internally where we realize that we can re-engineer the process, and having re-engineered the process and done that in conjunction with our end users, we can come up with a much smarter, much more savvy solution and do it much more quickly. So examples that are within building services, there's a single permit process. Within recreation and culture, there's a special events registration process that's a bit unwieldy as it stands. We know that we can reinvent that and do it quite smartly. But the methodology to do this is really key to understand. And again, if you assume what customers want, if you talk to a few of them where you feel quite strongly that you know what they want without talking to them, you can quite easily embark on a software development process or acquire software that will not fit the bill. So we're developing a process here that we're calling beta.oakville.ca. And that beta site will help us to develop new software and new solutions on behalf of citizens that we're going to do on an agile basis or a lean basis, developing a solution in conjunction with citizens, in conjunction with those end users, and then piloting that solution with them, using the data from how that software performs for the public, and then transforming or feeding that right back into our development process. And so in so doing, we can be iterative, we can be rapid, we can be much more cost effective, and I think really get much more close to what citizens want than how we've been operating in the past. And that's this process here. So this process isn't something that is intrinsic or internal to Oakville. This is based upon good process that we've found operating very, very well in other places. For example, we had Google in for a workshop back last August. And they walked us through a process, which you see on the left-hand side of this graphic, which is really powerful. And Google has employed this to develop all of their products and services. And they start with they do blue sky it, but they start with blue sky ideas in conjunction with end users. So they feel if they understand what the end user's problems are by asking them a series of very open-ended questions, they'll see what challenges they want to face and what they want to have solved. And then the idea is that you can say, okay, I can now turn that into a prototype. And I can take the prototype back to them and I can say, is this prototype the thing that you were looking for? And of course, there's going to be a bit of back and forth there. But once you've identified what they're looking for, you can turn that into a solution very rapidly and very quickly. And then, of course, you can turn that prototype into something at scale. And that process is something that's quicker, easier, and faster than traditional methods. This methodology is in use in government. It's in use in many different places. The example I like the best is the UK government. I would love to read all these 10 points to you because I think they're all very material. But I won't because it'll take too much time. But the one thing that they do that's congruent with what Google does and with what I've just recommended is to start with needs. Understand what the user requires, enshrine that in data, and then turn that into prototypes that you can test. So all the things that I've just said really are outlined in this UK government process. And they've been doing that successfully since about 2014. In the area of data, we've got a whole, this is a non-exhaustive list, by the way, and again, I won't go through these ones chapter and verse, but the key here is not just that we want to put together analytics for internal staff to use, because of course we've been doing a lot of those things for years. The question is, can we begin to merge different data sets together for new findings? So simple examples would be, we have financial information resident in our J.D. Edwards database. We have performance information resident in databases like our class database. But we can't put those things together all that readily. So what we need is specific use cases raised by staff that we can solve by putting these data sets together. And then furthermore, if you present, and we'll all know this, if you put data together in a way that is not intuitive, people will not use it. If you give somebody a complicated spreadsheet, they'll ignore it. So the next dimension to this is to package that information in a way that somebody can very, very readily make use of it. So this is just like, I'm a Fitbit convert, I use that thing all the time. I love the way it packages up information, makes it very succinct and very easy to understand. So this is the same kind of concept. We want to make the information highly intuitive, anyway, so make it as simple as possible. On the open data front, we're already making progress there as well. We're talking to groups within Oakville. Sheridan would be a great example of that. Silicon Halton's another example, where we're saying we have data sets available, but we don't want to just make them incur the cost of publishing them and hoping that somebody comes by to use them. So why don't we actually engage with them directly, discover some of the problems that they may be facing, see what other things they may suggest, and see if we can't collaboratively come up with some solutions. On the smart city front, the bottom point is probably one of the most key, that we've got this town-owned asset and 100 kilometers of gigabit speed fiber optic cable that all town traffic flows across, but our town traffic takes up a fraction of that particular network. So what it represents then is an asset that other towns don't necessarily possess. They would either lease those lines or have access through third parties, but we actually own that asset. So it's something that we can bring to the table in negotiations and discussions with partners, say this is something that we can offer that perhaps others don't have. It should be something that should be very, very attractive. Yes, okay. Another good example would be the second one down from the energy management standpoint. But it would actually be in the area of filtering. So we know that we've got hundreds of filters operating in equipment throughout the town. We have a service level that would mandate that those things are swapped out on a very, very regular basis. But the question is, should we do that? If we attach sensors to each of these filters, we'll be able to monitor airflow pressure and replace them actually when needed, as opposed to what the service level dictates. And that difference, that margin, should represent a cost savings for us. You bulk up that concept across hundreds of filters, you take that concept and you bulk it up across all of the town's equipment, and suddenly you're staring the opportunity to save money right in the face. So what we cannot tell you is this is the dollar amount that we will save, and this is the schedule under which we will save it. What we can say is we're going to experiment with this and figure out how these equations work, and then turn those findings into actionable and scaled up projects. So this graphic is borrowed from friends over at Siemens, and I think it's a nice way of illustrating how a smart city functions. What we're looking at is a way of monitoring, through the use of technology, all of a town's assets and all of its operations. And so we can understand how traffic flows work, we can understand how parking works, we can understand energy consumption, we can understand transit. But do all these things less based upon assumption and more based upon data. From a change standpoint, I think there are a few things to take a look at. The first of these, I would like to go to the bottom point, if I may, which is to talk about process reengineering. And again, this is where we've got processes that have worked very well for years, but we are now facing situations where perhaps we can provide a service back to citizens more rapidly than we have done in the past. So part of digital transformation is to ask internally how the process works and see if we can't find ways of swapping out steps or making things simpler and easier. But of course, what this does is it touches off questions about, in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, what's our workforce going to look like? And we have to start beginning to plan for that now in terms of the skill sets and the jobs people will hold in the future. And the last part then is the strategy, or the strategy element of partnering with community members. And here we don't have all of the answers. What we do know is that this is a key part of the strategy. It's something that we have to embark upon. But I think the one thing that's key is to organize our partners and ourselves around a common objective. So if we say to ourselves we want to be the GTA's most connected community, and we say this is the thing that we want to aim towards, what we want then is our partners saying, okay, here's what we can bring to the table to help you get there. And the challenge there is to say, Siemens or a Sheridan or a Javelin or a Silken Halton or Haltech or Sheridan, or sorry, repeated that one. They'll all be willing to partner with us, but will have different skill sets and different things to bring to bear. So what's the nature of the strategy framework for partnering that would encourage them to come on board with us, but to contribute to the extent that they can, as opposed to setting a common ask? Okay, I think we've gone through that relatively well. So the other thing that we did then was to say, all right, this is all well and good, but what we don't want to come to council with is a significant incremental ask. So what we did do was put together an ask for 2017 so that we could conduct the pilots that we need to understand where cost savings can be found, where process improvements can be found, and et cetera. What we've done, by and large, though, is to tie this into the larger IT spending over the next 10 years. So what you're looking at here from to the end of 2026 is about 22.2 million worth of spending that's allocated across those focus areas illustrated in the left-hand side of the chart. What we're saying is we can accomplish these things using existing spending and leveraging that spending towards a common direction. So what we're not talking about then is significant new money. In fact, if there are ways that we can be more efficient with it, we obviously would. Oops. Okay. So this is an internal website. So it does not have, there is no access outside our four walls. But what this is an example of what we'd like to be able to do. So this is the beta website, and the beta website is again where we want to bring up our lean, agile test products and services for public consumption. All right, so it contains a portfolio, and this is just sample for now, but we have to sort of show you what we're aimed at. So what we'll see is a portfolio of products and services that we're working on, a description of the specific project, and which areas of our strategy we feel are satisfied by that particular project. So in this particular case, we feel that Oakville Transit will help make government easy by making schedules more discoverable, that we feel we can be more transparent, inclusive, and engaging, that we can collaborate to make Oakville great, and that we can be data-driven and analytical in our processes. The other thing to note here is we're talking about versions as well. So the idea in a minimum viable product, the idea of going through this beta process isn't to build a solution and then stop. All these things are going to be iterative. All these things are going to change over the course of time. So in the same way that your applications on your smartphones are always changing, you're getting the next version upgrade, we want to be able to demonstrate a similar kind of concept here so that as we bring aboard new improvements, and we're doing this in conjunction with citizens, with their feedback and with the data upon how they're using our services, we can smartly target the next wave of development, and we should be able to convey that here. And what that'll show is that Oakville is very responsive as a government, and that we're actually responding to what citizens require and doing so in a timely fashion. The other element of the site is to convey to the public our digital strategy. And it's the same idea. We understand that strategies change as you gain new information, and you shouldn't think of the strategy based upon today's date as being something locked in and immutable. It is the sort of thing that will change over the course of time. So what we want to convey then is the strategy as we understand it today and as we recommend it today, and ask for the public's input and their feedback and participation. So what you're not going to see here yet, but we will before we make this available to the wider public, is a mechanism to engage. So we want to put Facebook comments in here, for example, so people can give us their feedback. We'll have tracking devices or tracking mechanisms so we can understand how people are flowing through the site. So as we go along, we'll make this a very engaging experience for our citizens. Okay, and the other thing we're going to do as a last piece is to ask people to get involved, and this is just a placeholder piece. We'll layer getting involved down to the level of the project and at the digital strategy level, so people can be very targeted with what they want to get engaged with. Okay, so if there are any questions, I'm happy to address them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barker. You do have a few. Councillor Elgar?
Thank you very much for the presentation. And I know we talked, I guess it was a week ago, about what you're doing. And I like where you're going. I'm just concerned that we maybe got to speed this up a little bit. But I think what we have to do is give information to the residents. And I know we talked about if we're going to really get the residents involved, they got to have something for them. And Wi-Fi to me on the city buses or the town buses is probably the best investment we could make, because we're getting a young crowd who are on the buses, and I think we could really get a lot more people on the buses if they had Wi-Fi, because nobody wants to pay for data anymore. And I'm just wondering, do we have plans where we can introduce something on a trial, even the Sheridan bus like this year, to get it going?
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the question very much. And the answer is yes. We're talking to Sheridan tomorrow, actually, on a series of projects, and this will be something that we'll be talking about with them. And I agree, as we discussed during the workshop, I think it's a fantastic idea.
Now, what about for the rec centers, where we've got it, in some rec centers, we've got it in one area, but the rest of the rec center, we do not? And how much would be involved in getting it, if we've already got Wi-Fi in a section of the rec center, why we couldn't expand it to the whole rec center?
So I do know that the IT department has got new wireless access points coming in 2017. Exactly where they're going, I don't know. But putting in more wireless access points gives us wider Wi-Fi coverage. So we're actually getting to a point where that coverage should be much more widespread. And if it's a specific area that you want us to take a look at, we're happy to do so.
Now,
I do know they've got that in their
if we
budget.
do that and we offer the free Wi-Fi, which I think, if you take a look around, that's everybody wants it nowadays. Can we make money from advertising, where we have people that would pay so that when they go onto our Wi-Fi, there's little maybe ads show up, or even Oakville information show up? Like, design it in such a way that we're getting in, we're helping out residents or businesses that are in Oakville, and we can get revenue for what we are doing as to help pay for it.
Right, so I would believe that the answer to that has to be yes. I wouldn't want to say a categorical yes. I want to look into the business models and understand how it works. But I don't see any particular reason why we wouldn't be able to do something like that.
Yeah, I
As long as we're not being partial in any way, I don't see why we wouldn't.
I think we got a revenue. It could be a revenue generator for us. Just allow it. We get paid for advertising on buses.
Well, I was just
And I'm
going to say
thinking,
if we
hey,
can do it on
what
buses.
the heck? Why wouldn't we do it at any of our public facilities? Like, try to get it going. Like, and maybe we can get ahead of the curve on everybody too, because we get enough money to do it. So, if you could look at that, I'd appreciate it also. But I thank you for where you're going.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Noel?
Thank you for the, excuse me, thank you for the very exciting presentation. Councillor Elgar touched on something that I wanted to talk a little bit about. I think that was properly prosecuted, so I appreciate that and look forward to updates on that Wi-Fi, because I hear that on a regular basis as well. Buses, parks, rec centers, that sort of thing, so whatever you can do. In terms of the beta site itself, do you have an estimated time of arrival for public access to this so that engagement can start?
Yeah, I do. I think we're looking towards the end of February.
Okay.
We'll see. Now, what I want to do, just so we understand the process. This is a beta site, and the beta site has to go through its own beta process. And that means I need to have people internally and externally look at it on a limited pilot basis to make sure we've ironed out the kinks before we roll it out more fully.
So essentially, it's in an alpha phase right now.
It's an alpha form of the beta site.
Yeah.
That's a very good way of putting it.
When it is launched, will the data sets be live data, or will they be sample data? So if, for example, if you're looking at something like the recreation programs, will they be live? Will it be live information that people can interact with on a realistic and a meaningful basis, or is it simply just sample data sets?
Okay, so it's okay. So there's sort of two questions. There's a data question and a projects question there. So when we launch the site, I expect that all of the projects are going to be in conceptual form.
Okay.
We may have one or two that we can push a little bit further down the road, so we can show that there actually is a development process people can engage with. But I wouldn't expect the project's point to have progressed an awfully long way. From a data standpoint, the open data piece that's actually something that we can attain much more rapidly, I think, is that is about discovering which data sets people want. So I've actually got meetings booked over the coming week and change to figure some of those things out.
As a card-carrying nerd, I have been involved in a lot of beta software projects in the past as a user and provided feedback. And I think the projects that are probably the most successful are the ones that actually have a meaningful purpose in the actual beta, meaning that the programs really work and they actually achieve something. It's not just toyland. So I think you're going to probably get a lot more active engagement if the programs, the apps, the data, and everything else is meaningful and real.
I completely agree. It really depends. Like if with developing any software and with any new service or any new solution, they're all going to be at a different point in the life cycle. And it depends on who the users are, what that market is, what they need, and how we roll it out to those specific segments. But I completely agree with you. The more real we can make this for a wider audience, the better.
The last question I wanted to ask, and I touched on it when we had our session, our counselor session, and that is with respect to the one basket aspect of whatever the ultimate site looks like in terms of one shopping basket for all services at the end of the day.
Yes.
So instead of having a platform, not a site, instead of a platform full of a whole bunch of little apps that all dump you out into separate areas, it would dump you into one particular area so that at the end of your transaction, you're able to check out using that terminology once as opposed to multiple times in multiple databases, signing in and out multiple times. Is that part of the end game on this site?
It absolutely is. Yes, the idea that you'd have to log into separate solutions within Oakville.ca, it strikes me as being wrong-headed. We have to find a mechanism so that you are greeted as a user, greeted as a citizen, greeted as a business person, whatever role you play. We need to understand who you are and what you require, and your experience at Oakville.ca should be seamless from service to service. You should be able to see your past history of interactions with the town. You should have ownership over your own data. You should be able to manage all that stuff. And you should be greeted the next time you come back. So I completely agree with you. It has to be an integrated experience.
And would that be managed through the CRM?
In
The
part,
relationship
in part. Actually,
aspect.
that's a good question.
Yeah.
So we have to, we have to recognize you as a registered user, but we have to, for some services, paying tax might be an example. We have to authenticate you as a user. So there's an authentication engine that has to sit in there, and that authentication engine should be able to stay with you as an authenticated user through all the systems within the town of Oakville. Okay. So yeah, that has to be architected in. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Very exciting. Looking forward to lots of great updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Knoll. Councillor O'Meara?
Thank you, Mr. Barker. And I want to thank yourself and Commissioner Bell and Lalonde for meeting with me for close to an hour the other week to explain this and roll it out. And I walked away very excited and ready to sort of see where this was going. But since that time, I've had some growing concerns, primarily just in terms of we're not going to have an hour to spend with every single resident in Oakville to explain to them what it is we're doing here. We use words like process re-engineering and data drivers and projects, and my main concern is we are going to very quickly go over everyone's heads in terms of what it is we're trying to do here. I understand there's a beta group, but that beta group will be treated like we were as councillors, where we get an hour to do a deep dive in this thing. But can you let me know what we're going to do to ensure that we bring everyone along on this path with us, that we speak clearly to them in terms of what it is we're doing, and in that respect, we speak clearly to our staff as well in terms of what it is we're trying to accomplish here. I mean, we're using words like projects, and I know the lady in Ennis Clare, when you tell her we're launching new projects, those mean completely different things to what you might be referring to as projects. So I'm a little concerned just about the communications aspect to this, and maybe you can shed a little light on that for me. Thank you.
It's a brilliant question. And with every product and service that would be developed, it's going to require its own communication strategy to figure out who the likely user base is for that specific service and understand how to communicate with them. I think the key with the process that I'm recommending, this beta process, is you want to have those users, some representative sample of those users in up front as you identify what the challenges and problems are with the existing service. So what we should be doing from the outset is speaking their language, understanding their problems. And when we come back to them with, here's how we have prototyped the things that you asked us, we wouldn't say it's a prototype. We'd say, look, we've begun to build things that we think will address the problems that you've got. So in other words, communicating in a way people, I think, would find useful and clear for them, and then use the data from how they use those services to begin to improve them as we go along. So what they should be experiencing is something that's as close to seamless and easy to use as possible.
So I guess what I'm sort of hearing is that we will have a communications plan that goes along with our digital strategy that almost acts as a filter to interpret what it is we're doing, which can be pretty high level. I mean, maybe for my 5-year-old, eventually that'll be second nature to her, those languages. But even for me, and God forbid, some of our older residents, there might be. Sorry, right? But anyway, so we will have a communication strategy to sort of package this up and make it palatable and understandable.
So in terms of the beta site design, we are actually going to be going out to focus groups, and with this express purpose of ensuring that it's really easy to understand, really plain language, that when someone goes on the site, it's very intuitive and easy for them to figure out how they want to make comments on the services that we are developing on their behalf. So for Ian's presentation, he's used project management language, but with citizens, we would be using extremely plain language. I would be thinking of what I would be relating to be quite honest, and ensuring that anything that we have is very easy for everyone to understand. So the process that Ian's actually talking about is actually working with residents and having residents comment on the way they'd like their online services designed so it's easy for them to understand. And that would include the type of terminology that they relate to and is a very easy to understand descriptor.
Well, thank you very much for that, and I'm super excited about this. So I'm happy to know that, because I don't want to be fielding those questions as well and trying to bridge the gap. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor O'Meara. Would a couple of you excited councillors like to move this? Councillor Knoll was first and Councillor Lapworth was second. We're moving, just so everybody understands, we're receiving the report and approving the strategy. Shall I call the vote? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? And our digital future lies before us. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like to take you into the trees for a second. For the benefit of the public, I provided council, I'll just explain what this is. I provided council with a report pointing out two concerns that the residents associations have brought to light. One is that under the proposed changes to the private tree protection bylaw, there remains what I think is best described as a conflict of interest, where the person who identifies a tree as being a hazard is the same person who benefits from the fees for taking it down. And so you would quickly see that the incentive on the arborist who decides if it's a hazard tree, the incentive is all to call it a hazard tree. And so what this report asks staff to do is to develop a way to break that conflict and not subject the arborist to that temptation. And the other thing the report asks is that although we have a good handle on tree protection and indeed growth in subdivisions and new development, and we have a good handle on tree protection where site plan control is applicable to a property, there are a larger number of properties that escape our notice because they would appear to be rebuilding a home in a quote-unquote as of right stance. And it isn't always accurate in the opinion of the residents associations, and frankly my own opinion, that that such projects are purely as of right, because there's a section of our OP, the neighborhood protection section, which I think is 11.1.9, that isn't immediately and and visibly reflected in our zoning. And so a person who just checked the zoning and the OP without checking section 11.1.9 might think that the building permit being sought was as of right, where in fact if we were to subject it to a more careful analysis, we might disagree with that. And so this report, if you adopt it, will be asking staff to bring back solutions to those two problems. And with that, I'll just conclude by saying, in order for this to be adopted, it's going to need a mover and a seconder as well as votes. Councillor Lischina was first off the block. Councillor Elgar was second, so I'll call you the mover and the seconder. Are there other speakers to the matter? Councillor Duddick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very pleased to see the things outlined. I know Councillor Chisholm and I spent quite a lot of time with Commissioner Bell going over some concerns, and it's exactly what we had requested in terms of addressing some of the gaps that we saw. The one thing I do note that is missing from here that we did raise in the context of that meeting was some sort of visible notification for people to see that the appropriate checks and balances had taken place, because quite often the residents have to call in to find out and initiate, and something as simple as some sort of a posting would indicate that there has been contact, it has been approved, and that they don't have to initiate the inquiry from there. So I just raised that.
Thank you, Councillor Duddick. Councillor Elgar?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate what we're trying to do here. I think it's very important after sitting on site plan for a number of years and seeing what was happening. My concern is I just want to make sure that asking for this isn't going to slow down the passing of our new tree bylaw in Oakville. And that's all I need, confirmation from staff that we're not going to slow down anything here, because it's important to get the tree bylaw we have that's going to come before us, get it through. But if we can throw this in at the same time, I'm really happy. But if we can't, if we get the tree bylaw, and then still make amendments to it, if that's possible.
To you, Mayor Burton, with the discussions with Chris Mark and Darnell Lambert, we would maintain the same schedule and include this information.
I really appreciate that, and I thank you. Thanks.
Next on my speakers list is Councillor Lischina. No? Councillor Adams, then.
Thank you very much. Very good report. I think it covers a lot of good ground. I just have one question about the timeliness of the permitting process when somebody, I don't know how many requests would occur over a weekend for a hazard tree, for example, that might be on private property, and how the municipality would support those kind of requests that might happen over a weekend or on a statutory holiday, for that matter.
Mr. Green.
Through Mayor Burton, that is actually what would be coming forward in the staff report.
Thank you. That's fantastic.
Now, Council, I thought Councillor Duddick made a very sensible suggestion, which could be added as a third request, which is to devise a public notice process on the site where a tree is to be removed. And I would ask you somebody to second that idea, and if Councillor Elgar, thank you for obliging me. So then I would ask you to vote first on her amendment and then on the amended motion. Are there any other speakers? All those in favor of the amendment moved by Councillor Duddick and seconded by Councillor Elgar? That carries. Thank you. And now, shall I vote on the main motion? All those in favor of the main motion? And thank you, Council. That carries unanimously. We have no confidential discussion items and no advisory committee minutes this evening. Your information items have been circulated electronically, as have your status of outstanding issues report. Is there new business that any council would like to bring before us? A notice of motion, emergency, congratulatory, or condolence? Councillor O'Meara.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I would like to thank yourself and town staff for lowering the flags today at half-mast. And I know Councillor Adams was circulating some emails earlier today about the tragic events in Quebec. So I did want to express my condolences to the families as well, and also wanted to express my personal dedication to ensuring that every member of our community in Oakville and across the province and across the country for that always feel welcomed and safe, and ensure that we are all Canadian. And walking my daughter to school this morning and seeing the breadth of diversity at her school, and lacing up my soccer boots at the Oakville Soccer Club, and seeing the people that we all share camaraderie with, just does nothing to underscore the importance of that diversity and that which makes us Canadian. So I do note that it is a time for reflection for all of us, and for everyone in our community, to ensure that they all feel safe and welcomed, and that any acts of intolerance are stampeded at the first sight that we see them. So I don't want to take too much time, but I did want to express my condolences to the families in Quebec and in the region, and also to share my concern and my feelings with the residents in Oakville who may be harboring some sort of sentiments and unnervingness at these events, and let them know that that's not who we are as Canadians, and that's not what we expect from our community. So with that, I'd thank you for the time.
Thank you, Councillor O'Meara. Anyone else? Council, earlier today I issued the following statement on your behalf, and indeed on behalf of the entire town of Oakville. It's with utter shock and disgust that we were informed of the repulsive act of terrorism targeting Muslims in Quebec City on Sunday. On behalf of the entire town of Oakville, we offer our condolences and prayers to all concerned in this tragedy. Halton Regional Police informed Council that they have increased police presence, patrols, and visibility around local places of worship. They've also reached out to members of the Muslim community across Halton and offered their continued support and partnership. Council would like to thank the HRPS for their quick and proactive response and reaffirm our commitment to the safety of all Oakville residents. In 2015, Oakville families, community groups, and faith organizations began working together to welcome refugees fleeing the terrible conflict in Syria. This moment reflected the best that our community and our country has to offer. Since then, hundreds of Syrian refugees have settled in this town, and we've been made a more united, inclusive, and strong community as a result. Recent events, both within Canada and outside Canada, may have made many residents, not just refugees, in Oakville feel less safe than they felt before. On behalf of all Oakville residents, Council would like to assure our entire community that Oakville will always be the warm and welcoming place you and we know it and work every day to make it to be. And Council, I can tell you that at Knox, Oakville, at 89 Dunn Street this evening, the public are being welcomed for reflection and shelter and just general observation of the situation. And the Dar Foundation, which is one of the mosques in town, is having a vigil on Saturday. And I'm sure that the local media will be providing information on that in their editions on Thursday or Friday. And before I finish, I saw some really, truly ugly and despicable things in social media today from Canadians. And it made me want to go look at our Constitution, because much has been said about what are Canadian values. And I believe that we all share a dedication to Canadian values. And I thought maybe it might be a moment where it'd be useful to remind everybody by reading them what we say in our Constitution are our Canadian values. And I'm not going to read the entire Constitution, because the entire Constitution doesn't deal with that, but right up front in Part 1, we find this: fundamental freedoms. Everyone has the following fundamental freedoms: freedom of conscience and religion, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication, freedom of peaceful assembly, and freedom of association. Further on, under the mobility rights, our Constitution provides every citizen of Canada has the right to enter, remain in, and leave Canada. And then, I won't detain you too much longer with my constitutional reading, but under equality rights, our Constitution provides every individual is equal before and under the law and has the right to the equal protection and equal benefit of the law without discrimination, and in particular, without discrimination based on race, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, sex, age, or mental or physical disability. And then there's finally just one other statement here, and that's under multicultural heritage. This charter shall be interpreted in a manner consistent with the preservation and enhancement of the multicultural heritage of Canadians. So, thank you very much. We all take an oath, we municipal politicians, to the Queen. Provincial politicians take an oath to the Queen, and members of Parliament of Canada take an oath to the Queen. And what that oath means, I'm instructed by legal sources, is an oath to our institutions. The primary one meant by this is our very Constitution. And so tonight, if you'll permit, I call on all members of Parliament, members of provincial Parliament, and municipal officials to keep in mind what their oath of office actually means and what the actual given rights of Canadians and values of Canadians are as expressed in our Constitution. And I thank you very much for letting me go on like that. Councillor Elgar.
Burton, you might want to tweet all that information off to our President Trump in the U.S., just so he knows where Canada stands.
Well, all I can say about that is, in times of adversity, when other people are working out their own issues, my instinct is to focus on our own life and make our own life as good as we can for our people. And by that activity, shine a beacon of example to everyone else, and hopefully it will inspire the kind of change that we're looking for. So if we do a good enough job of making our own life attractive, we'll attract others to our banner. So, but thank you very much. Council, are there any regional reports or questions regarding the town boards and advisory committees? Madam Clerk, I see none. Any requests for reports? I see none. How about a mover and seconder for consideration and reading of the bylaws as listed in the agenda? Councillor Lapworth and Councillor Lischina, all in favor? Opposed, if any? The bylaws are adopted. Council, it's been terrific working with you, and I thank you for your time and attention, and we are adjourned.